Okay, so yesterday we did Mishlei Chaf Chaf test Tiferes Bachurim Kocham V'Hadar Zakenim Seva. So the splendor, glory, beauty, whatever of whatever glory or splendor, I think seem to be the best ones of young men is their strength, and the glory of elders is their gray hair. Or according to Sadigon, he just says it's not the, but it's one of the splendors and one of the glories. Our questions were: what are Tiferes and Hadar? Are they synonyms or do they have different meanings? What are Bachurim and Zakenim? Are these qualities the Tiferes and Hadar, or are they only one of them, like Sadigon? What is koach in this context? Is it physical strength? Is it vitality? Is it some sort of like psychological characteristic? And if it's physical, then it's not very Mishleic, presumably, because Mishlei is not really concerned with physical prowess. What's seva? Again, is that literally gray hair? Is it like feebleness? Is it attaining old age where you have gray hair? Is it something else? How is the koach in Bachurim at Tiferes, especially since most Bachurim have koach? So it's not saying that like in other words, among the Bachurim, if it says that they like take pride in their koach, like among each other, that doesn't really make sense because they all have it presumably. How is seva a hadar? Same question there. Is it possible to have both koach and seva? What is the havamina of each statement? Is it that the Bachurim think that their koach is not their Tiferes? Do they think something else is their Tiferes? Same thing for Zakenim. What is the relationship between the two halves? Are they opposites? Are they like both one side? And if so, is that the chacham side or the fool side? What's the practical application? Who's the audience? Those were our questions. So I feel like we had a lot of approaches yesterday, but I think they all revolved around the question of basically like, do you take these as positives, negatives, or like both, you know? So we had, let's try to reconstruct what we had. Ariel's, I know Ariel's on Zoom, but Ariel's shot had to do with koach being like that get up and go, gung-ho spirit of youth. You know, that like I can do stuff, I can change anything, I can be successful, and that will allow them to achieve a measure of success, which they wouldn't have had without that, because most people aren't willing to take those risks or to like be that stubborn, you know. But on the other hand, old age, it brings with it wisdom and experience and like, you know, perspective, and that will allow them to have certain things that the Bachurim don't have. So the idea is that both of them are valuable, and then ideally they should work together. That if you're a Bachur, you should take advantage of that disposition you have, but also consult the old. And if you're an old person, you should definitely like make use of your old wisdom, but then not dismiss the what you can get out of like that youthful spirit, or like say that they're just all like kids, you know. That was the only idea I remember fully. Okay, but we had others. Which
you know stuff.
Yeah, what was it? Do you remember? If you jog my memory, I could probably remember it.
Bouncing off of Isaac's.
Yeah. Oh, so Isaac said, I think, that they take pride in their strength, not knowing that like, I don't remember.
The thing you said that made me think of the pasuk from Tehillim Kaf.
Yeah.
That was something, whatever you were saying. Maybe.
Yeah, like they take security in their strength. Yeah, I don't remember beyond that. But I did find, so let's segue into the meforshim. Yeah.
I remember. Isaac learns one half is being negative.
Yes.
The first step, and
Yeah.
Both is being
negative. Right. So Isaac said that it's saying that the Bachurim like erroneously regard their own koach as like the thing that makes them glorious, but they should know that like in the future they're gonna I don't remember how he followed through, but in the future they're gonna have seva in place of that. And I remember if he was saying that like they're gonna lose their koach and that was the emphasis, or that they're gonna treat something else as their glory, and like they should keep that in mind when like taking pride in this now.
He also said something to the effect of Zakenim, just because you're old does not mean that like, oh, I'm old now, I'm a wise person.
Oh, right.
And people have this assumption like,
yeah.
Oh, I'm young, I got this, and oh, I'm old, so I'm this.
Yeah, right. That perfection does not come as like an intrinsic part of like going through these life stages. You know, you can become old and not have the wisdom that comes with it. And then what was there an idea with the youth thing? It sounds familiar, but.
I mean, I would assume in a similar way that just because you're old is not mean that you've now like achieved this perfection.
Yeah.
And then just because you're young does not mean that you have, whatever positive qualities come from
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it piggybacks well off of Ariel's thing. Like just because a person has that get up and go quality does not mean that they're going to be successful because of it. Like it's not the and just because the old person has experience doesn't mean that they're going to actually like derive benefit from it. That was like with the Trump example. Yeah.
According to Yuri, though, the pasuk is sort of like sarcastic. It's
Yeah.
not like real glory. It's like, don't think this is a
Right. It's well, the way I said it, which is the same idea as the sarcasm, but just you don't have to read it that way, is that there is a genre of Mishlei pasukim where it identifies the mistake, but it doesn't tell you that it's the mistake. It's like, this is the way that the fool thinks, Yeah. Okay, well, we have Isaac now. So yeah. Okay, so let's just go to the meforshim though here. Okay, so I did see the Radak. That was the first one I saw. And he says something like what we said. Okay. Tiferes bachurim kocham, habachur, is that big enough? I can make it bigger. Whoa, that's too big. Habachur, where is it now? Nope. Yeah, okay. Habachur mispire bakocho ba'odo babacharuso. So the youth like brags about his strength while he's still young. Okay, he glorifies himself with it. I think he's using mispire, I think, because it's the same shorsh as tiferes. Like he takes glory in it. Oh, this is like one of our approaches. When he gets to his old age, then he glories in his old age, or in his gray hair. So the reason is because the youth, the strong youth, people will honor him because of his strength. And old people will glorify them because of their chachma that is found in them, and because the Torah commands us to glorify them. So he doesn't really spell out what the practical application is. He's just stating it like a fact, right? So if we get something out of this, this jogged my memory, by the way, about another pshat, but I'll say that after.
Seems to be like the people who how people interact with these individuals.
Yeah.
Rather than how these individuals are talking.
Okay, so maybe if we actually ask the question about who the audience is, that'll help us to formulate it. So, do we get a practical application from? So, is this talking to people who interact with bachurim and old people, or is this talking to the bachurim and the old people themselves? And if so, then why? Or if either way, why? Yeah.
It seems to me like the honor you get is sort of fickle. Like it's only when you're buffer, digging this, or
oh, that's interesting.
When you eventually save, let's say 70 or so,
Yeah.
you're getting that honor.
Okay.
But for the most part, with not in those stages, you're not getting the sacred honor.
Okay, so that's an interesting perspective. I'm gonna take that and run with it. I don't know if it's in the same direction that you're going, but we can explore it. Is that when people praise you, you feel like it is about you, but a lot of the stuff that they praise you for is just like incidental to like the life stage that you happen to be at, or the way that or the expectations people have. Like let's say, for example, like I don't know exactly what he means when he says people will praise the buckler for the strength, but I guess like a good example would be like athletics, right? Like athletics are admired in this society, and the athlete who is like strong and fast or whatever, takes personal pride in that. But like, it's not really personal because you're gonna, it's personal in the sense, obviously, that you like chose to go in that direction. But like, a lot of people are strong and fast when they're young, and same thing with like, if you're old, like there's people settle into this thing of like, oh, I'm an elder. Yeah. A lot of old people are elders, like, and the Torah commands you in it, so it's like, it might be a way to like, to diffuse the kick you get from when people praise you based on things that are like incidental to your phase of life. And it gets into other things also, like people who are, attractive, get a lot of praise, but that's just their genetics. It's not you, it's just like something external to you, that you happen to like be in. There's an anecdote that I have from the summer. This has got to be the most hilarious comment I've heard this year, I think. There's this old woman, again, I know that's building it up. There's this old woman, I was shopping in a grocery store, and this old woman, like, who was like, like a little stooped over, said, "Excuse me, young man, could you please reach those 2 jugs of Arizona iced tea on the top shelf?" And I said, "Sure." And I grabbed them, I put them in her cart, and she says, "Thank you." is there anything down low that I can help you with? It was even funny because it's coming from this old woman who, like, I didn't expect like that type of humor, but like it reminded, I was reminded of that because, like, yeah, it just happens to be that, like, I'm tall because I'm male and younger than she is, and she's a woman and she's stooped over because she's old. It's like there's no intrinsic like good quality there, you know? Yeah. So that would be the practical application here, which is when someone praises you for something, then you have to ask yourself, how much of this is actually like my doing, and how much of this is circumstantial to like where I happen to be or what things I was endowed with by nature, you know? And if it's in that latter category, like, then just like that can, like, if you take it to heart, it could turn off the gaiva. Like, okay, fine. So like, it's like if someone said to you, like, you know, like if someone, I mean, I know people do take pride in this, but not rationally. Someone praises you because of your eye color. Like, you don't say like, oh, I picked out the pigments myself. Like no, like that's clearly something that just like, you know, is there because of your genetics, you know? So there are lots of things that fit into that category that people do take pride in. And this is like, these are two examples of that. Yeah.
So practically, like in terms of the consequences, the difference.
The consequence.
If you have data for both of them, it could be part of my nature, right? Or it could be some consequences.
Right. So the way I'm learning it is like, it's based on the, okay, if this is really about gaiva, and again, I'm getting that from the Radak statement, habachor mispaer bakoko. He's like glorifying himself in this, you know. The premise here is that gaiva is going to lead to bad decision making, and any route that you can take to cut down on the gaiva is going to be beneficial to you in terms of your ability to think clearly about yourself and other people, you know. So like, again, another example is like people who are born into wealth will treat themselves differently when really it's like their parents or their grandparents that like got the wealth, and has nothing to do with them, you know. Or people who have yichus, you know, that's that the statement in the Gemara, I want to say it's in Pasuk, but I don't know. Like someone says, like, what is it? Was he asked to give a eulogy, or am I mixing up two Gemaras? I don't know. Someone was like, you know, like you should say something nice about this chacham or this guy because he has good yichus, and he's like, if he has good yichus, then he should be lit on fire or something like that. Like some like extreme statement about how like yichus is like meaningless if it's not actually, if like you're not taking on the qualities of the person whose yichus like is venerable. Like if you are descended from a chacham and you don't value chachma, so then your yichus is like not only worthless, it's like bad, because then you are taking pride in chachma that you don't have because someone, you know, one of your ancestors did, you know. Like this, there are many examples of this, but he's just using these as examples that I guess huge segments of the population can relate to, you know, youths and elders. Yeah.
I also say like you're saying of then what people place as a good then.
Yeah.
Like aside from just taking like this gala they'll have from, also they'll start putting a good onto these things.
That's also true. Right. Yeah. It's like, yeah, and it's a really sneaky thing. Yeah, when people praise you about these qualities, so not only are you taking credit for them when it's not really yours, but because people enjoy praise, then when they praise you for these qualities, you end up viewing the qualities as a good, because that's what got you the praise. It's like, you know, it's conditioning almost, you know. So yeah, so you got to like nip it in the bud by realizing this has nothing to do with me. Like this is just the hand that I was dealt, you know. Yeah.
So do you think it's also okay? So I get, you know, getting that type of praise, you know, for what you didn't do is
Yeah.
maybe a problem. But what if you did do something, you know, on your own? Like,
Right.
Is the praise harmful?
So, I mean, again, this goes back again to the thing I always quote is like the psukim in Yirmiyahu, that he tells you what you can take credit for, which is Yirmiyahu 9:22. Koamar Hashem al yishalo chacham b'chachmaso. The chacham should not praise himself for his chachma, which the Rambam says in this context, chachma means midos. Okay, because that's not the true perfection of man. And it's also only a means to an end. Okay, the and the strong man, which is physical perfection, shouldn't praise himself for his strength, because that's not a human perfection, and it's shared with it's shared with other animals, and it's you know, fleeting and and just also a means to an end. And Ais Hala Ashir Ba'ashro, and the wealthy person shouldn't praise himself for his wealth. That's perfection of material possessions. Im bezos yishalo hamis halel. And again, it's weird phrasing. Only in this may the one who praises himself praise himself. You know, Haskell Viodo Osi, comprehending and knowing me, Ki Ani Hashem Ose Chesed Mishpat Utstaka B'Aretz Ki Be'elech Hafasti Num Hashem. Because I am Hashem who does Chesed Mishpat and Tzedakah in the land, kindness, justice, and righteousness in the land. Ki Be'elech Hafasti Num Hashem. Because in these is my desire. So if you are going to praise yourself for something, then at least let it be something that A, is dependent on your bechira, and B, is actually truly a human perfection. But the way he says it conditionally, he's not saying you should praise yourself for this. He's saying if you are going to praise yourself, then this is the only thing you really should take pride in. But true chacham would realize that that even this he can't really take credit for, because his ability to be Haskell V'Yodo Osi, to be engaged in Yedias Hashem, like how much of that can he actually take credit for? Like, yeah, there are bechira decisions that he made along the way, but all of the circumstances that, meeting certain teachers, finding certain books, being born Jewish, encountering things that led you to convert to Judaism, these are really not something you can really take credit for, So yeah, so that's like, if you need an outlet for your self-glorification, let it be Yedias Hashem. That's like what the Navi's saying. Yeah. Okay, ready for another one? Okay, let's go to the packet and look at, did we do meforshim yesterday?
No.
Okay, so let's do Metzudas David, Rבינו, Yona, and Me'iry. Let's,
we did one.
Well, we did the Ron, right? Yeah, that's true. Okay, so he says, very short, as usual, Tiferes, Kamo Shekoach HaBachurim Hu Lahem L'Tiferes, Cain Seva says, okay, he's not even explaining an idea, I don't think. Just as the power or the strength of youths is for them a glory, so too the gray hair of elders is for them a glory. Oh, maybe there's an idea here. Anyone see it?
It seems to be spelling out the Havre.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think the Seva is the glory for the
right.
skin.
Yeah. Or maybe this is the same thing. Or the Bachur would not classify his self-glorification and strength in the same category as like the seva that they're glorifying themselves in. Again, like take the athlete example, right? So the athlete takes pride in his physical athletic qualities, right? And if you said, yeah, you're just like that old guy who likes his gray hair, he'd be like, what? And it's saying like, no, it is something that is like, not reasonable to expect. It's like natural to you, in a certain sense, in the same sense that like that is natural to him. So why are you taking credit in it? In fact, it's like, I think this is actually like a good answer to the question we asked of how is koach a tiferes of bachurim, especially since most bachurim have koach. Meaning even the most common things people will take pride in and think it makes them special, when really it's not, and it doesn't make them any more special than gray hair on an old guy. It's just like a thing that is like natural to a certain extent. Yeah.
We're not using the same words to describe the positive outcomes of these things. Like we use tiferes for one, and then we use kocham for another.
You mean we use hadar? Hadar for another? Yeah. So that I would say, Metzudas David's favorite phrase, which I bet if you did a search in his commentaries on Nach, you'd find this, is kafel davar b'miloshonos, that repeats the same idea in different words just for poetic reasons. And that's like his shita on whenever pasukim use different words. So like other meforshim would be bothered by that. He's not bothered by that. Yeah. So I think that so again, just the genius of the Metzudas David, he's really only adding two words, kamo and Cain, right? And he's just saying like, oh, you think that you're so great because you're strong? Well, that's no different than this guy thinking he's so, great because of his gray hair, Yeah. Right? Yeah.
I feel like the is going the other way.
Okay, so let's explore that direction. How so?
I don't know.
Well, what do you mean by the other way then?
Like it's saying like the buffer strengthening is being natural.
Yeah.
So too for the seva.
Meaning that the audience is the zakenim?
Yeah.
That's interesting. So you can okay, I was thinking about this as a possibility, but I don't know how much this is dependent on our society. Like there are definitely the anti-aging industry is like a huge industry, right? Like people like having like hair dyes and skin creams and like all this other stuff to like make or like actually like trying to prolong their like all youthful qualities. And in this society, it's like a source of shame, maybe mingled with fear about getting old, and you could see, and again, I don't know in that society if it was the same way, but if you go with my interpretation that seva is like frailty, and like Ibn Ezra said, it means you're close to death, then perhaps this is talking to the elder saying, you might look at the Bachur and be like, oh, those were the good old days, when I had this strength, and saying it's true that you don't have that anymore, but you should take glory in the fact that you have this experience, this life experience, and this maturity, and like this other stuff, and let that be your glory. In other words, like you should not try to live in the past and just like age to the grave, regretting that you're no longer young. You should embrace the aging process with all of its benefits, and transition to viewing that as your glory. And if you talk to people who like I don't know if this is like a common thing, but I know in this community, if you talk to people who just turned 30, 40, 50, 60, like, and you ask them, like say on their birthday, you ask them, like, how do you feel? They'll, what?
I feel terrible.
I wasn't actually asking you, but we could talk about it later. But if you ask them about it, they will often say that like they're happy that they no longer are in the state of mind that they were at the previous decade. Like when they look back, they're like, I so much more value. Like even though they say I lost certain things back then, like I'm excited about like this being at this decade of life because there's so many more benefits. Like I can think clear. I'm not caught up in all this pettiness. Like I have this this advantage. And I feel like that's not something. I feel like that's something that a chachma culture or a perfection culture is going to be more prone to. But a lot of people who don't have those values will just see the physicality deteriorating, or like the Ron said yesterday, they'll see that they can't live the party lifestyle anymore, and then they'll mourn that, and so it's like so it could be talking to the elders for that reason. That's a good approach. Yeah.
There's something really wrong with me.
Okay, let's do Rביnu Yona and see what he says. Yeah. Okay. Good. Again, I know I said this yesterday. I love the Metzudas David. Like, this is why when it's countless experiences like this where you think he's not saying anything, but you've had enough experiences where he says so much in little words just by like tweaking the pasuk a little bit. It's such a masterful parush.
And the translation thing definitely really. Understanding the translation, how they translate it, definitely really helps. Yeah,
and that's it's the same thing with the Sadigon and the Targum. Like that's why I love these minimalist meforshim. It's just like if there's any if there's anything that's like I'm going to use this term loosely, like Ruach HaKodesh, like that's like the art of like knowing exactly how to shed light on ideas with just one little move, a little bit of ink. Yeah. Okay, Rביnu Yona. Tiferes Bahurim Kokam Hadar Zakim Seva Es Hakol Asa Yafa Beito. That's a pasuk from Koheles. God made everything beautiful in its time. Okay, Ki Tiferes Bahurim Laharos. The Tiferes of the youths is to show Bohem Hakoach, is to display in them strength. Interesting. Oh, so he's not saying it's their Tiferes. He's saying like basically God is showcasing Koach via the Bahurim. I think that's what he's saying. Ki Koach Roy Laharos Ba'adam Zman Habachrus, because Koach is befitting to demonstrate in a human being at the time of youth. Kasher Amruzal, like Chazal say, ben shloshim lekoach, a 30-year-old for a koach. See, 30 is good. V'hadar zakenim seva, and the glory of the elders is seva. Hadar hazikna belovin hase'ara. Okay, so he takes it literally. The glory of old age is the whitening of hairs. Apapishu more al yovesh halechus v'tashas koach. Even though white hairs is indicative of the drying of moisture. I guess that was the theory back then with the like that's why your hair gets white, because all the moisture goes away, and weakening of power. Yeah, right. It's lo nas lecho, that his moisture didn't depart. Yeah. So does that mean like Moshe had just like this sleek flowing black hair? I wonder. I doubt it. The Iker Kavanas Hamikra Hazel Inyan Haba Acharav. Kihu kagdam elav. Uh-oh. All right. So he says the essence of this pasuk is for what comes after it. So we'll have to like table Rבינו Yona for a second. But one thing we can look at just to like satisfy our Rבינו Yona craving, assuming we have that, is let's look at Rבינו Yona on Avos, on that statement of ben shlosh l'mekoach, and just see if that sheds any light on this. It's in chapter 5. Nazikin. Oh, and just for FYI, in experience with Rבינו Yona, I've said this before, but I think Rבינו Yona for some reason like spent more time writing on Pirkei Avos or going over his stuff on Avos than Mishlei, because Mishlei often feels like a draft. The commentaries are inconsistent length. The sentence structure is not always like clear, but Rבינו Yona on Avos reads very smoothly. So I don't know this for sure, but just experientially, I find a much better like user-friendly interface on Rבינו Yona on Avos. That's just my subjective opinion. Okay, so
I kind of feel the same way.
yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
You got two subjective opinions now. Okay, so he said, "Oh no, he doesn't. He only comments on the 90-year-old. Oh well, it was worth looking."
Maybe you can learn from the 9-year-old and 30.
Maybe I can learn from the 9-year-old, but 30. Okay, so the 90-year-old, it says ben tishim lashuach. A 90-year-old is the age for stooping over. And then me'ak ilu meis v'avaro b'adam min olam. And when you're 100, it's like you are dead and going away from the world. Yeah. So who haya omer v'hulei ben tishim lashuach. Oh, I gotta say an anecdote. So Rabbi Moskowitz is 87, I think. And does he?
Yeah, but it's in the 70s.
Really interesting. So hold on just a second. I got to get the wording exact because it was a hold on just a second. Oh yeah. So my friend Rabbi Ben Aronson visited him recently because Rabbi Moskowitz had all these health difficulties, and so Rabbi Moskowitz said to him, "Don't grow old." Okay. So then Ben said, "Is that an observation or advice?" And Rabbi Moskowitz says, "I don't know." So I've been thinking about that a lot, and it's interesting because my grandmother just turned 97, and she also says the same thing. Don't grow old, kind of tongue in cheek. And I get the impression that it's because in this period of 90s, you really start, like everything really starts to like break down, and then by the time you're 100, then you're like, it's like you're dead. And the only, I've had one relative, great uncle William, who lived to 102 and was like active until he was like 97. And he also, when he hit 100, he was like, yeah, I'm just ready to die. Like, it does seem like there is a reality in this in this thing. Anyway, lashon shiach, shiach ume'ara. So it means it means a cave or a cavern. Klomar roihu l'kvura means you're ready to be buried. Okay, that's something to look forward to there. V'yesh meforshim milashon shiach or siach she'ein lo la'asok ela b'divrei Torah. Okay, that's a very optimistic way. It means conversation, and siach has the connotation of either tefillah or Torah, right? Like Yitzchak was lasuach basadeh, or like David Melech says, "Ma'ahavti torasecha kol yom hi sichasi." Like I love your Torah so much, all day long it's my conversation. So he says, at the age of 90, you should converse in Torah. Ki karvo yamav lamus, because you're going to die. So either way it comes to you're going to die. My impression would be that this first part of the Rבינו Yona is talking about the like the Ibn Ezra thing says, that your mortality is very real to you now. You are like being escorted to your burial place, when you're 90, and that should have all the effects of like hachna'ah and yiras chet and like, tshuva and stuff that the recognition of death brings to you. And that's an interesting thing also because, Chazal say you should do tshuva one day before you die. And it says, oh, how can you do that? You don't know when you're going to die. And it says you should be doing tshuva every day. So the thing is like, yeah, probability wise, like statistically, like if we buy life insurance, then the way that they'll calculate it is that we're probably not going to die unless we get like in an accident or a severe medical thing. But when you're 90, the probability is like way up. So you can actually like lean on that for all the perfection that comes from knowing that you're going to die. The other thing is you're going to die and you only have so much time left to be involved in in Divrei Torah, so like you should like use that, yeah, so that's that.
So taking this, I mean, you can apply it to the 3rd-year-old.
You can apply to theory, yeah. Hold on just a second, I just want to give an anecdote before I forget it. No, it's fine. There's another, I'm just thinking, like, I don't know how many people who are over 100, but like the times that I've met people over 100, like I've been very like eager to like ask them for stuff, like just ask them for advice. And so, oh, there's the blondes. That could easily be. He's that could easily be. So this is a bizarre experience. So I was listening to a song called what was it? Yeah. Oh yeah. There's yeah. I wasn't sure which neighbors you're talking about. Yeah, that's true. They are old. Yeah, we should ask them. You should totally ask them. Yeah.
They usually sit outside.
Yeah. That's actually a great idea. I don't know why I never thought of that. But anyway, this I was listening to this song, classical music piece called La Fiesta Mexicana, and I was looking up the composer, and like I was looking on Wikipedia, and it said like born 1906, and there's no death date, and I was like, wait, you mean he's still alive? So I was like, and I was researching it because I had to find out whether the song was a Avodah Zarah or not, because it was written about a Catholic festival, but I wasn't sure if he wrote it as like a religious thing or if he wrote it as a like about like the cultural thing, So like I was like, okay, this guy's still alive, but whatever. I'm going to email the publishing company and ask them for information about it, the company that like owns the copyright. So I emailed it, and I looked at the email address, and it was the guy's initials. Okay. And I was like, maybe this is the guy, Oh, no, what he responded back to me saying like what he wrote it for, And I was like, oh, this is like some 100, I think at the time he was like 105 or something like that, And I said, like, once I realized like, oh, this is the composer, he's 105, and I'm emailing with him, like, how often does that happen, So yeah, so I asked him, I said like, and this is when I was in yeshiva, and like I was, like I don't even think I'd started working yet. And I was like on the precipice of like going out, into like adult life, and I asked him like, do you have any advice for like a 20 whatever year old, and he said, I don't have time to like write a long thing because I'm old, and then he said, but my advice would be stop and smell the roses. Now that's a common thing, right? Like that's a saying that people have, but when you hear it from a 105-year-old, that's the advice he's giving. Like he's saying, I don't have time to give you advice, but like, this is the one thing I would tell you. To me, it has a different meaning that like, this is the thing that like he's saying of like, stopping and like enjoying like life experiences. So I thought that was interesting. Okay. Yeah. So you said you can learn from here to the 30-year-old.
Well, you can
apply it. Yeah. Oh, right. Kolshkin, like Kal Chomer thing.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
No, it was more about like, you can the 30-year-old, meaning, I think this is really in line with my
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Thing is like, the 30-year-old on average won't think about this stuff.
Yeah, right. They think they're gonna live forever.
Just imagine he did.
Yeah, right. So that's what I was thinking. The Kol Shekin, certainly for the second one. First one is not like 30-year-olds are not on their way to burial. Like they could die, but they're not on their way to burial, most of them. But this other one of if you only have a few years left, like then use them for Divrei Torah. Well, if you're 30 or if you're younger, you have so much time. Like, like what are you doing with your life? Like if you don't use that,
I wonder if seeing yourself balding, and I'm not.
Yes, no, you're balding, yeah. Really I will tell you, like
it's scary.
Yeah, like we are. I guess more in this phase than you guys are, but like, I mean, I'm not balding, thank God. No, I'm just kidding. but when I know when you there is a thing where you realize that the first time you realize that your body is like my back hurts a little bit, like that's not supposed to happen, or like I can't, like I don't have the endurance that I used to have. There are these little signs of death, that like are reminding you that you're aging, and like you don't notice them until they hit you. Like you don't think about the fact that they're gonna hit you until like they hit you, and so yeah, I do think that you can use it that way. That's true. Yeah. Okay, let's do the Me'iri. He begins on the previous page. Me'iri, oh no, he really doesn't. right?
What was that? I remember in the summer we were discussing about like how one should have the mentality that he's gonna be dying like the next day, but you have like a shot on that. Like, how does that really work psychologically?
Yeah, right. So that actually is interesting. Yeah. So the real quick recap is that live each day as if it were your last is very easy to say, but then how do you do that? Because statistically, you're not going to die tomorrow, you know. And so the technique I found over the summer or over the Shavuos really was you might not die tomorrow, but you will not have this day again. You know, so it might be that you will have another day, but you won't have this actual day again. And so realizing this is the last time you're going to have this day, and by this day I mean like right now we are sitting here learning Mishlei 2029, and there's you. We're never going to have this conversation again. You know, like in this time on this day, like in these circumstances. Then after this, you're going to go off to your Gemara shir and you're going to have that experience. Like this is the only opportunity you're going to have to take advantage of whatever opportunities are before you right now, you know. And if you have another opportunity to have a Gemara shir, it's a different opportunity. It's not the same one, you know. So like that's the that was the technique. Okay, so the me'iri you see on the next page, the nigla. Okay, Ar lezakin. Oh, so he's going with your approach. This is a lesson for the elder. Lihizahir yoser mishar b'nei adam lekadesh atma b'mutzarlo. Wow. Really, the Zaki needs that. So let me explain the phrase first. If you're not familiar, Kadesh atzmucha b'mutarlach means it's what Chazal say, which means that there are prohibitions that are designed to enforce kedusha, like machalos asuros, you know, and isurei bia. But then beyond those things, you should be makadesh yourself. You should exercise self-restraint and control over your animalistic desires, even in areas that are mutter to you. So let's say, like with food, it's not enough to just eat kosher food, but like not overindulging or eating healthy food you should do, you know, like those are ways of being or in, let's say, like with money, you know, like there's not violating mishpat and like actual isurim of theft, but then beyond that, like you know, relegating and exercising self-control over your greed and ambition of like pursuing like fantasies of money, you know. So he's saying this is an insight to the zakin that he should be more careful than other people to be makadesh himself and that which is mutter to him. And I'm just astounded because, first of all, why the zakin? Like, if anything, you would think that the zakin has less taiva than the bachur. And secondly, like, where does he get that from in the pasuk? So let's see. V'amar k'moshe tiferes bachurim lefi hatevahu kocham. He says, just like the glory of youths by nature is their koach. Kain hadar zakenim seva. So too the hadar of zakenim is seva. Ratzalamar, what does this mean? Shiachniu levavam hachna'a yesera b'chol davar. They should make themselves submissive or humble exceedingly in everything. Ukmoshe amar hachacham, like the chacham said. Who's the chacham? Oh, so mivchar paninim. Anyone ever heard of mivchar paninim? No. Meiry loves quoting it, and Rבינו Yona likes quoting it. It's a collection of Jewish and Arabic proverbs that was compiled in the Rishonic era, and it's available in like its own volume, but it's like just other proverbs, you know, ethical sayings. I believe it's Jewish and Arabic. I think it was collected from Jewish and Arabic like ethicists. So he says, the Chacham says, "Oy kama maguna ksilos b'zaken." Whoa, how disgraceful foolishness is in an elder. V'amar echad, and another one said, "Ha'atzla maguna ubifrat b'bachurim." Laziness is despicable, and especially in youth. Redifas hata'ava maguna uvazakin yoser. Chasing after taivas is despicable, and even more so in an old man. That's like a stereotype, right? The creepy old man, right? Like it means, in other words, there's creepy behavior when someone is like involved in like, you know, like if you see like, I don't know, 20-year-old at a bar trying to hit on like on a girl, like it's that itself is creepy. But if he's 70, that's like disgusting, you know. That's, I think this is what it means here. This is an interesting idea. We'll say it in a second. And brazenness and cruelty is despicable, but more so in women. That was the thing with the in the Holocaust. Like there were these women, these specific women known for their excess cruelty and torture and like that they would do. And he's saying that, so he's saying that there are bad qualities that for some reason become more pronounced depending on your age. In other words, how people look at them. So in youths, it's laziness. In elders, it's pursuit of taiva. And in women, and he's only bringing in women because that's part of the proverb. The pasuk doesn't talk about it. In women, it's brazenness and osarios. Yeah.
So in all these cases, it's cases where you would not expect to see that quote.
Correct. Yeah. Right. So I mean, this is just a strange way to approach the pasuk, right? Let's forget about how he learns it from the pasuk and just try to get the idea, right? So like, who cares? Like either. So let's say like laziness, right? Is laziness good or bad? So if it's bad, so then it doesn't matter how people look at it, right? It's just it's a bad quality. It's foolish, And if it's not bad, then why should it matter how people look at it? And same thing. Redifas hataiva. That's something the Torah is against in general. So what makes it worse if you're old? In what framework is he talking about? And it's weird also that he says, even after quoting the Bachur thing, he says this is aimed at Zakenim. Yeah, Mati.
That you needs to work on himself as well. So
That's interesting.
Like perfecting yourself is something that you should be striving for all the time, and if you're still doing it when you need to, then working hard.
Right. So it turns out, I think this is the address of the Trump insight that I had, yesterday, or the Trump example I had of the there are certain things where young people are petty, and when you grow older, there's a certain thing where you would expect most people to grow out of it. So if you are retaliating to personal insults on Twitter, then it is a certain really he's really using his time for that, he should have moved past that at this point, yeah. So let's just translate that into full Mishlei practicality. Or are you gonna say something also?
It's similar, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Just, that these things indicate further corruption to midos.
Yeah.
Because these stages of demographics usually have internal dispositions that way.
Yeah.
Like when you're young, you do have big gun violence.
Right.
So if you are lazy, it shows you you're worse. So
okay, right. Or women have a motherly, compassionate, empathetic disposition on the whole. So if they have cruelty and brazenness, which is the opposite of that, then that shows a bad disposition. So let's bring it home to practicality here. So if you are a zaken who's reading this and you're I am rodef taiva. So how does this change? In other words, you're talking to a guy who already has not been working on himself in terms of taiva. So if this is for him, what does he get out of this that he apparently missed in his youth, he missed the Kaddish Asmacha B'Mutalach memo, in growing up.
Not a lot of self-help books.
Yeah. I have an approach, just in the interest of time, I'll just throw this out there, that and this is actually a good Lo Lishma technique that you can extend beyond this, is we say in general, you shouldn't care about what people think, right? On the other hand, you shouldn't care what other people think because that's not reality. However, using social opinion as a lo lishma to get yourself in order, meaning that using social opinion as a way to motivate yourself not for the right reasons is a valuable tool. So for example, if you are, I think I'm going to use the Bachur example because it's easier. Let's say you are a Bachur who has played with laziness, right? And let's say let's use the extreme example of the 25-year-old who lives in his mom's basement just playing video games all day, right? So let's say he's not motivated to go and go to school, get a job or whatever. So for him, if he can't motivate himself if he lacks the natural motive, right? Because clearly he does, and if he's not doing it based on realizing the intrinsic value, just looking at society and saying people are going to look at me like a lowlife, that itself could jumpstart his ability to get moving. And then once he gets involved in working on his laziness, then he might see the actual benefits of getting his life together. Same thing with the old man of let's say this guy, a Hugh Hefner type person who had a life of taiva as a youth and gloried in it, but now he's a creepy old man and people look at him weird, that could be an impetus to then get his life in order and change his values around, and that's a valuable tool. So in other words, this is a big thing. You should lo lishma is not the ideal. Doing something for lishma is what you're going for. But if you're not there yet, you can harness lo lishmas in order to actually make behavioral changes that then lead to actually developing the qualities that you're striving for and then doing lishma, you know? So that's like a technique in general, you know, like the woman who finds herself being cruel and insensitive, if she realizes that all the other people are looking at her as like, you know, this monster, that could actually motivate her to make behavioral changes, which then become actual good mitos for the right reasons. That seems to be like Mary's idea. In conclusion, I mean, I know there are more meforshim. This was a surprisingly rich pasuk for how bland it sounded and how non-Mishlaic it sounded, you know? You never predict how pasuk's going to turn out when you first read it, you know? Like we got like 5 or 6 ideas here. Yeah. All right, good. All righty. See you later. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. See you, Isaac. Tomorrow's Q&A, yeah. Did Rabbi Markowitz give shir on Friday? Oh, good.